We are on the air. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to my podcast. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to another stream, another playthrough, but most importantly, another history lesson here. I'm playing the game, playing Creed Odyssey, which is one of the best games ever made. On an artistic level, on every level imaginable, story, drama. Now, the game is set in the years 450 to 425 BC. It was during that time that a great war was fought between two of the biggest city-states in Greece, Sparta and Athens. Both were the largest city-states in Greece at the time, the most powerful, and very different cities. A stark contrast between Sparta and Athens, let me tell you. Now, Sparta is the oldest city. It is basically where the modern world began. And what I mean by modern is modern forms of government, architecture, the first Renaissance, elaborate compositions in music, architecture, medicine. You get the drift. Sparta was where we went from, we went from the mud huts to buildings like this here before you. We just, it was the beginning of our evolution by a leap and bound. But compared to Athens, Athens was the more modern city. Sparta was very conservative. It was very set in its ways and did not adhere to democracy very well, which was what Athens implemented into society. Democracy was born in Athens, not Sparta. Sparta was still a monarchy, and they wanted nothing to do with the Athenian way. And this is how the war began. This is why the war began. It was because of tax collection. It was because of democracy versus monarchy. Now, Spartan monarchies were, unlike modern monarchies, they consisted of two kings. The Athenians, they were ruled by archons, and these archons were elected annually by its citizens. They were a democracy. This form of government tried to spread into Sparta, and Sparta, as a result, declared war. I believe Sparta declared war on Athens. Now, Sparta was a warrior culture. They were absolutely known as the greatest warriors on earth. The Spartans and the Athenians are essentially the very reason why there is a two-party system in America today, and why the Parliament and the monarchy rule England, and why many modern countries have a two-party system, especially democracies, right? The Republican Party, there's a lot of Spartan influence in it. Most notably, how they pump a lot of resources into the military. The Spartan government was strictly their philosophy. Their country was their philosophy was simple. We defend ourselves. We maintain our civilization via military, and that's that. That is all that matters. The sword and the shield. Athens was a little different. You know, they spread their power, and they spread via money, wealth, banking. That's how they acquired their power. Sparta, they wanted nothing to do with banks. They wanted nothing to do with that. It was simply sword and shield. And boy, was it effective at that time when the world was very, you know, there was no technology in the world. It you know, having a capable army I mean, it proved so effective up until the Roman times. You know, for many, many years, a capable army was all that was needed to maintain power, authority, and safety for your nation. Spartans were incredible warriors. They were the biggest. They were very big. They were taller than the average Greek people. Supposedly Spartans, a lot of them were just very big. The men were big. The women were very statuesque, beautiful people. They were stronger. They were faster. And we saw that in the movie 300, which was based on a true story. It's more myth than ever, but, you know, like most myth, there is a historical tie-in. A group of just 300 Spartans defeated an entire army before eventually falling. But they were really badass, man. Like, they were just not only big and powerful and faster than the Athenian people, but they were just great at tactics. They used their environment when fighting. They were connected to the natural world. They knew how to fight. They knew how and what tactics to take depending on where they were fighting, on the type of land they were fighting, on the type of terrain. They were incredible. So they did win the war eventually. Sparta did beat Athens. And what happened was there was a truce. The truce stated, Sparta stated that they will spare Athens. They did not burn Athens down. All they said was, look, stay out of our turf. We want nothing to do with your banks. We want nothing to do with your government. We want nothing to do with tax collection. Stay out. And so Athens did exactly that, and Sparta remained independent from the Athenian power wave that was spreading in Greece at the time. And this reminds me of the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, which this is how the church became separated from state. Though Spartans' reasons weren't so much religious but cultural. You know, they wanted nothing to do with that form of government. And how is this so relatable to today? Come on, it's still going on today, man. You know, and you look at Athens, the blue, their colors were the blue. They were very they would dress in blue robes, and politicians wore a lot of blue armor. Their buildings had blue banners on them. Sparta was the red state. Let me meditate here and let it go. Let me show you the morning hours so I could show you the city better during the morning. I want to talk about the architecture. Let me take a little walk into town, and let's talk about the citizens a little bit. Like I said, they were a warrior race, a warrior society. All male Spartans had to be had to fight, had to become soldiers. There was only one way. You become a soldier, and that's it. There is nothing else more important. You had to become a soldier if you were a male. And even females were taught how to fight, because a lot of them were widowed, and because of that reason, females were educated, unlike Athenian women. Females were educated. They were able to own property. They were able to. They were warriors. They were able to defend, if they had to, defend their cities from pillagers, and were widowed. A lot of Spartan females were just badass, man. I'm gonna see if I can find a bunch of kids that are training. Like, once males hit the age of 8, they had to learn how to fight. They had to learn how to use swords. Here's an example of that. Bunch of kids learning how to fight. A young girl, actually 2 young girls, training how to fight with sticks. Athenian women were not educated. They weren't allowed in the schools at the time. They didn't learn how to fight. All they were taught was how to run the household. That wasn't the case here. This city, Sparta, was just something else, man. Like, in Athens, because they had a monetary system and banks, their government was so based on industry and economies based on those industries that people had the option to become fishermen, start big companies, all because of money, you know? And that's how a monetary system was very powerful. And it's amazing how this influence from money, from currency, could move the world the way it did in Athens. And it was all because of luxury. You know, it motivated workers to work harder, work longer because of money. And things got done, man. Now, Sparta was, you know, was a very strange country because it was very primal. The men, if a man wanted to become a fisherman and did not want to fight in the military, they were exiled, ostracized from their families, kicked out of Sparta, and never to return again. If a Spartan couple had children, the babies had to be inspected by people who were physicians. The babies had to be inspected by physicians for any potential ailments, deformities. If the babies were diseased or deformed, they would be put to death. They would be thrown off a cliff. It was insane. If a male was incapable, physically incapable, and unable, you know, not great at fighting, which was rare. Most Spartan men were very good warriors because of their genes, because of their size and quickness and all that. But some men were gay. There was a couple of story arcs in this game. A Spartan male was a bit gay and wanted to be a fisherman, and he was renounced. He was disowned by his family. If a male lost a lot of, if he was physically incapable and would routinely lose sparring matches, the female would disown the male and get with another guy. You know, the stronger male, like sort of like a wolf, like a female wolf who accepts the stronger alpha wolf, you know. Whoever wins the courtship battle gets the girl. Spartan women were like that. They would go with, if a man showed signs of you know, femininity or no masculine traits, fewer masculine traits, they would go and get with another guy, man. It was nuts. The eagle, as you can see here, The protagonist of this game has a pet eagle. The Spartans worshipped eagles. And this particular protagonist here, named Alexios, is a Spartan. They call him the eagle bearer because eagles kind of respond to him a little differently, and Spartans who were connected to animals in the way he's connected to this eagle were very cherished and held in high regard. Much like the American military today, the eagle is very much symbolic of, the apex predator in its respected kingdom. Here's a couple here, making out on the bench. Let's take a walk through Sparta. As you can see, their banners are red. That is the Spartan symbol, which had some significance, that triangle there. The red carpet here, which is still used in Hollywood, signifies the bloodline. Now, the Spartans were very much into bloodlines. A lot of them interbred between within the family to keep their bloodline pure. They believed they were descendants of the gods. Zeus, Athena, Hera, so on and so forth. There's a bunch of men in training. It was a very crazy city. You see a lot of this in very right-wing delegations, like, the Nazis were very similar when it came to their people, and they regarded disabled people as invalid. And the reason why they would kill, the reason why the Spartans would kill off their sick children was they thought it was merciful. And the Vikings used to do this too. In the Nordic countries, they believed that they were sparing the child pain and suffering. They didn't, it wasn't because of any other reason. Now, if you look at their statues, they honored their warriors. There was no statues of any philosophers in Sparta like there is in Athens. Now, I'm going to go to Athens now before I end the stream. I've been going on long enough. But I want to end off by, I want to say a few more things about Sparta. They honored nothing but warriors. This one, I believe, is the statue of Leonidas. Yep, that's about it. This is Sparta. No pun intended. Beautiful plaza. They created art was born here. Music, like I said earlier in the stream. But they did not monetize art and architecture and all that like the Athenians did. Music. The Athenians made everything an industry. Everything. Everything. Art. Music. So let's go to Athens and just see how different that city is compared to Sparta. I'm going to activate the fast travel, and I'm going to talk about Athens for a bit. Let's go to Athens. So let's talk about the main character for a bit. The main character is a Spartan, but he renounced his Spartan heritage. He doesn't identify as a Spartan anymore, and he's ashamed of his Spartan heritage. The reason why is because, like when I said that they would throw deformed babies off cliffs, the protagonist in this game tried to prevent that from happening. He could not bear to see a baby being thrown off a cliff, so in a fit of rage, the protagonist killed the soldier that was tasked with throwing the sick babies off the cliff. And so, since Sparta abided by such a... oh wait, this is not it. I'm in the wrong city. Since Sparta was so strict with its laws of conduct, there was almost no crime in Sparta. Compared to Athens, there was a lot more crime in Athens because of money and things like that. Sparta was they were such a stoic people, so rooted in tradition. They would never go against authority. There was a hierarchy, a power structure that was to be kept intact no matter what. No one broke any rules. There was no crime. There was no money. There was no crime. It was, in a sense, as crude as Sparta was, as base as Sparta was, there was something very noble about them. Because of reasons just mentioned. I'm going to take a little sip of tea and a little nib of chocolate to liven me up. I am very tired. It is now almost 1 a.m. And I need chocolate. Okay. So, oh, Sparta there in the distance. Eesh. I need to go fast travel there. So let's talk about Sparta for a minute. Like I said, everything was industrialized. Everything. Males had the option to join the military or become physicians and make a living off of it. There was more freedom in Athens. Not so much for the women, though, but for the men. Athenian women were not educated. Their business was to raise a family, and that's that. It was very... For all their advances, there's a flip side to it. Just like Sparta, for all their crudeness, there's a nobility and a lot of respect associated with the Athenian way. The Spartan way. A lot of respect associated with that Spartan ideal, that Spartan philosophy. Athens, for all their advances, they were a bit, besides the crime and all that, women had it a little rougher in Athens. Look at their cities. Their cities were incredible. Their buildings were larger. You can see their buildings draped in blue banners. Their colors were blue. Like today's democratic governments, are very rooted in socialism. Money pays the way to the top. Not so much nobility, but anybody with a lot of money. They could be really shitty people and still find themselves on the top of governmental, on the top of the food chain, basically. But let's talk about Athens and how they reshaped the modern world via democracy, industry, banks. In a way, you see what money can do. Money is very much a source of power. And yeah, the men weren't capable. They lost the war. They weren't powerful physically, but they made up for it in wealth. Um, and as you can see, they honored their statues. Let's go look at their statues. People like Aristotle, Hippocrates, they're all in this game. They're a lot of real characters in this game. They did not honor warriors. They honored philosophers, physicians. Hippocrates was responsible for a few medical breakthroughs. Unlike Spartans, the Athenians actually synthesized herbs and made pharmaceuticals. They made extracts. They created highly concentrated forms of natural medicine. They put money into science, research, and a lot of plagues were cured. A lot of plagues were cured by Hippocrates, who, as many of you know, is a very one of the most famous physicians during that time. And so I'm going to leave it off on this note, ladies and gentlemen. Athens and Sparta, the war between Athens and Sparta, never really ended. In a sense, both sides are very prevalent today in influencing the world. Sparta, the Republicans, very much the Spartan ideal is still very much influential in right-wing politics, mostly having to do with war, the NRA, guns. Every citizen in Sparta was taught to fight. I keep thinking of the NRA, like, you know, how being armed, being able to fight, to shoot, is very much an important factor in the defense of nations, into the preservation of nations. That's how the right thinks, and it's still very prevalent today. It is a Spartan ideal. Okay? And as for the left, as for Athens, the banks, tax, they began to collect tax, and that's how that all started. You know, they ruled via money. They acquired power via money, and a lot of the democratic politicians today are very wealthy. They're all wealthy, but it's based on you know, you get corporations like Amazon, Facebook, who the right opposes them, you know, because they're becoming more powerful than government. That was the case with Sparta and Athens. Sparta opposed these financial groups and these large financial groups. I'm not going to say companies or corporations. That those words did not exist back then. But that's who ruled Athens, man. Yeah, they say it's where democracy first began, and their rulers were elected by the people. But if you ask me, their rulers paid their way into political positions. That is probably very true today as well. Anyways, that is it for me. I'm done. I hope you enjoyed this little walk through time. I don't want to go on any longer. I could go on much longer, but I think I've gone on long enough. I hope you enjoyed this this little history lesson. Oh, and by the way, the Athenian symbol is the owl, not the eagle. As you can see here on one of their banners, they were the blue. I'm out, guys. Be well. Thank you for tuning in.